Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Did you see where the largest refinery may be shut for 2 weeks down in Houston because of the recovery here from the hurricane, the flooding? You could argue it's a man-made disaster down there, not a weather disaster. You get in trouble if you do that. I mean, Katrina was man-made, problem. They had an upkeep on the levees. They were stealing the money rather than plowing it into refurbishing the levees. And the levees gave away. And there's some people out there now saying, Houston, hey, it's a man-made problem. They should have never built a city there. If they hadn't built a city there, there wouldn't be any flood. And if there was a flood, there wouldn't be any people there. So this is a man-made problem. Anyway, that refinery shutting down, oh, my friends, you haven't seen panic until you see what they're going to do with that story. You're going to see stories, no gas by Labor Day. And that's going to cause massive lines at gas stations all over the country as the news spreads that the refinery, the largest refinery closing for a couple of weeks, will mean no gas. Labor Day, I mean, that's Monday. You realize that? I mean, tomorrow is the 1st of September. Anyway, greetings, my friends. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh here at the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Our telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882. And the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. So I'm watching the recovery efforts. And you know what I'm noticing? I'm noticing that when the going gets tough and when there's work that needs to be done, who are the first on the scene? Individuals. Private sector individuals. You got people that own tree companies sending trucks to the region to get trees out of the roadways. You have individuals just diving in to rescue anything and anyone they can. Pets, human beings, families. It is an amazing. The L.A. Times has a story today that is interesting in its own right. The L.A. Times has a story that this disaster has refocused the drive-by media into doing what they should be doing each and every day, and that is the news. Her theory, it's a female, I don't have this right in front of me, I'll get her name in a minute, doesn't matter. Theory is that with so much coverage of actual news, actual events surrounding Hurricane Harvey, that there isn't time anymore on cable news for the way they usually make news. I think this is incredibly insightful, by the way. She says the amount of time pundits and strategists and analysts and opinion makers have been on TV is way down. And she also observes that that's become a recipe for making news. In other words, the drive-by media now relies on whatever they see on Twitter. They'll make a story out of a tweet. They'll have a guest. They'll have their roster of analysts and strategists. And they'll put them on, and somebody will say something outrageous. That'll become a news story. Or they'll see something on Facebook, or they'll have a poll, or anything to create controversy as opposed to real news. But her point is now that there's so much actual information to learn and impart in Houston with Hurricane Harvey that they don't have time to be doing the news the way they have. And I find this intriguing because my whole point about the media for the longest time has been it's not news anymore. Whatever else it isn't news. It's usually the advancement of the left-wing agenda. And it's now, I know, look, she's not entirely right. I mean, the cable networks are taking time now at night to get into some of their panels, and they are discussing other things in the news out there. But I thought it was an interesting take from somebody in the drive-bys. Now, she's a contract reporter for the LA Times, which means she's not on staff. Means when they don't have anybody available, they call the first name on their contract list. Hey, we need 500 words by tonight. Can you do it? Sure. What are you paying? Nothing. We'll give you a byline. I'll do it. And that's how you end up with a story like this. Anyway, what I'm noticing as I watch Houston, I'm seeing all kinds of boats. Large, small, surface, submarine. I'm seeing boats. I'm seeing trucks. I'm seeing monster trucks. Seeing tanks. I'm seeing helicopters. I'm seeing that the combustion engine, the internal combustion engine, has taken center stage. And that without it, the rescue and recovery efforts would not be 20% what they are. If we were relying on sources of energy that the American left has been demanding we shift to, we would be so far behind in this rescue effort as to probably not even be making a dent in it. Man-made internal combustion engines enable rescuers. Rescue vehicles are pouring into Houston to save lives. You know, Houston has experienced floods before Harvey. They're not that uncommon, by the way. We touched on this earlier in the week. And it always serves to remind the Galveston hurricane and flooding occurred in 1900. That was between 6,000 and 12,000 people dead. The death toll varies, 6,000 to 12,000. What did they not have in abundance in 1900? The internal combustion engine. 6,000 to 12,000 people died. Anyway, never mind that. That doesn't matter because that happened before we were born. And things that happened before we were born are not important. Right? Next on the media I'm hearing is Hurricane Harvey caused by climate change. And the drive-bys are so invested in this. Wait till you hear. We have an audio soundbite, Kellyanne Conway and Fredo Cuomo. Now, I have always maintained that Fredo, I had to be very delicate about this. Well, you know what? I'm not going to characterize. I'm just going to let you listen to it, and you will conclude exactly what I have about Fredo. I'll give you a hint, though. After watching videotape of some abuse taking place in Cuba, Fredo said, when are these communists going to realize that it's about equal rights and fair treatment for people? Fredo, is that what you've been told communism is? He got mad at the Cubans. When are they going to realize? They're giving communism a bad name. When are they going to realize it's about equality and fair treatment? And I'm thinking, okay, he grew up in the home of Mario the Pious and Saint Matilda Cuomo. Now, what were the Cuomo children taught? How in the world? Where do you get that idea that communism is about equality, fairness, and nice treatment? So you'll hear that coming up. Fredo totally invested in the idea that climate change. You know why? Because scientists say so. And Fredo doesn't have any curiosity about it. He doesn't challenge. He just, if scientists say so, then it's inarguable. It must be true. No situational awareness, no curiosity, no suspicion whatsoever. Just blanket acceptance. When has there not been climate change? I mean, that's the question. The only thing that's changed since 1900 as it relates to hurricanes is the prevalence of air, land, and sea vehicles powered by fossil fuels. 6,000 to 12,000 people die in a Galveston hurricane in 1900. What did they not have? They did not have rescue, air, sea, land vehicles powered by fossil fuels. I think the real disaster, and I've said this countless times before, liberalism is a man-made disaster. And we are every day engaged in trying to rescue people from it. Every day here at the EIB network, behind the golden EIB microphone, our efforts are to save people from the man-made disaster of liberalism, which is epitomized by groups like Occupy Wall Street and Antifa. You know, I saw something in the New York Post today, Mr. Snerdley, one of your favorite papers. It's at page 6. Apparently, this boggles my mind. Well, actually, it doesn't. It doesn't. Paul Anka, 76 years old, who wrote the song My Way, that Frank Sinatra song, Frank Sinatra sang it. Everybody thinks Sinatra wrote it, but Paul Anka did. Paul Anka lives somewhere in Carmel, Northern California. And I only know that because I was in Reno, and he was playing a date that night, and they told me, yeah, he flies back home every night. He's got a 2-week gig here, and he flies back home from Reno every night. He's got his jet, and he goes back. He doesn't stay in Reno for 2 weeks or Vegas, wherever. Anyway, he was booked. There's a big charity here in Palm Beach. I forget the name of it, but it's one of the 5 big deals in the season here. And they had their event scheduled for early December at Mar-a-Lago. And Paul Anka was the performer, and they gave him a $75,000 deposit. Have you heard about this? They gave him a $75,000 deposit. Then Charlottesville happened, and the media, by the way, Paul Ryan has now changed his tune on what Trump said. Paul Ryan's dialing back. You know, everybody believed the lies and distortions that the media reported what Trump said. This is the most amazing. What Trump said is what Trump said. It was out there. He's the president of the United States. You listen to it, you watch it. But instead, the media lied about what Trump said on 3 different occasions. And Paul Ryan believed it. And everybody chose to believe the media's lies, out and out lies and mischaracterizations of what Trump said. He never said there were good people in the KKK. He never said there were fine people in the white supremacy group. He never said that the neo-Nazis had some fine people in them, and yet the media is reporting this left and right. Anyway, the organizers of the event where Anka was to perform have decided to pull out of Mar-a-Lago. We can't hold our charitable event after what Trump said about Charlottesville. And just like a bunch of lemmings, they pull out without really knowing what Trump said. They just fall in line behind the lying, stinking media. Well, they had to go to a different location. Went to the Breakers, but they couldn't get the same dates. Had to move the date from early December to early January, and they asked for Paul Anka to move. He said, I can't. I'm going to be on a family vacation. They said, can you send us the $75,000 back? Paul Anka said, no. You sent me that money. It's mine. It's not my problem that you're not going to do the date on the original date. I agreed to the original date. You're changing it, not me. I have a small business to run. I have employees. I have a payroll. Your $75,000 is gone. You're not getting it back. They're all in a tizzy. What do you think? Should Paul Anka refund the $25,000? It's not. He accepted. It was December 5th, I think. It's maybe the second is January 5th, but it's an early December date that they canceled because they can't appear at Mar-a-Lago because, what Trump said after Charlottesville. Now they're probably going to have egg on if they know this, if they know that they've been subject to lies. I don't even know if they know yet that what they thought Trump said, he never said it was made up. And they're not the only group to pull out of Mar-a-Lago. A bunch of charitable events that take place here during the season have pulled out because of what the media said, that Trump said, that he didn't say after Charlottesville. So now they want, I'll tell you what it is. It's a woman's name's Lois Pope. She's the widow of the founder of the National Enquirer. And because she's a widow, that means for you and Rio Linda, he has died. And it's her charity that Paul Anka will not refund the deposit. And it's just, all of this is so unnecessary. This group didn't need to leave Mar-a-Lago, and none of the others that pulled out didn't need to leave Mar-a-Lago. They left under false impressions. They're just like a bunch of lemmings. It's frustrating as hell. Trump didn't say what they said he said. They lied about it. We documented 5 of the different lies. The New York Times has had to issue 5 different corrections. It worries me, I understand charities, they're out there to raise money and they don't want to be involved in controversy. But for crying out loud, why don't you find out for yourself? Did the president really say? Why do you so readily accept that the president said this stupid stuff? At some point, don't you say, that couldn't happen? Trump wouldn't have said, don't you? I guess not. fewer and fewer people. As I grow older, I encounter fewer and fewer people who are curious, who are suspicious, just blanketly, blindly accept this stuff. And it's as I say, it's frustrating. And we have been in a constant battle here. We're into our 30th year now to save people from the man-made disaster that is liberalism. Now, many, if not most, of the rescues in Houston were by individuals. And I'm wondering, are those people licensed? For example, are the people rescuing pets, are they licensed? Has the ASPCA or some government agency approved of these efforts? Are these just people on their own? Are these just people engaging in this activity without the proper credentials? Rogue rescuers. Do these people even know what they're doing? Are they qualified? The government has not sanctioned their talents or ability nor given them permission. I mean, for crying out loud, shouldn't rescuers have to pass a state or federal test and pay a state or federal fee before they're allowed to properly help others? How do we know their equipment is safe? How do we know that the rescue vehicles they're using is not destroying the planet? How do we know that the rescue vehicles they're using is not causing climate change? How do we know they're carrying the sufficient number of life jackets if they're engaged in water rescues? How do we know anything about them unless the government has investigated and sanctioned them? Well, that's another thing. How do we know they're not just these rescuers? How about, How do we know they're not discriminating? How do we know that rescuers are not saying, group people, I don't like those people because I'm a bigot, and they move on to another group? How do we know that's not happening? I got to take a break. Think about it for a second, and we'll be back. Yeah, so I got an email. I knew this was going to happen. I got an email. Yeah, Rush, we heard you. Greatest U.S. natural disaster, the Cat 4 Hurricane Galveston, 1,900, 6,000 to 12,000 people died. But what happened since then, Rush? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Just to repeat, Galveston, Texas, 1,900. There's a point to this, folks. Hang in there. Oh, do we know what the gender mix of the rescuers is, the gender and racial mix? For example, do we have enough transgender rescuers in order to be able to spot other transgenders in distress? Do we have a proper percentage of African American and feminist rescuers so that African Americans and feminists are not left behind? Do we have the proper percentages and mix? Does it reflect the population of Houston? And if it doesn't, why not? Why this kind of discrimination in the rescue effort? Serious questions for a serious country. Okay, so 1,900. Category 4 hurricane hits Galveston. Between 6,000 and 12,000 people died. Texas economy was still rebuilding. Another Cat 4 hit the same area 15 years later, August 1915. Then only 1 year later, another Cat 4 hit Texas in August of 1916. So 3 Hurricane Harveys, 2 of them in consecutive years. There was no climate change. Nobody's even thinking about it. What would people alive today who happen to be living back then, what would they be blaming it on? Would people alive today be able to handle what happened between 1900 and 1915 with no internal combustion rescue vehicles? I'm sure the Republican Party is happy to see this next story. All Houston students, ISD students, I don't know what ISD stands for, I could find out. Obviously, it is the Houston Unified School District, the high schools, middle schools, all that. Houston students will be eating free this year, as families are sure to be recovering from the disaster for a long time. The Houston District has received approval from the United States Department of Agriculture. See, that's how you do it. Now, why isn't some United States cabinet level authorizing these rescuers? Why aren't we doing everything according to political correctness with the rescue efforts? I'm asking this sarcastically in case you can't tell. So the USDA and the Texas Department of Agriculture are going to waive the required application process for the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program. This decision is going to allow all 218,000 students to eat every school meal free this year. So the Republicans cannot be accused of starving children in Houston, at least. So I'm sure Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, very happy to see this development in Houston. Despite the waiver, parents are still being asked to complete the application. See, even though they've made this blanket decision that every student in Houston, and by the way, it's 3 meals. It is breakfast, it is lunch, and it is supper. Did you know that they were serving supper in public schools? Well, they are in Houston. They're calling it supper, not dinner. In addition to free lunch and breakfast, the district will be providing free supper as well. District officials say the waiver will give families one less concern and allow their limited funds to go toward recovery efforts. So, now they still have to fill out the form. Even though there's a waiver, they have to fill out the application for free meals because in order for this to actually happen, they have to prove the numbers. And so the application must be filled out by parents. No child will be turned away. And as I say, this is a wonderful, wonderful thing as far as the Republicans are concerned, because at least in Houston, they cannot be accused of starving children now. Dallas, another story, but Houston, Republicans off the hook. Now to Fredo Cuomo. Let's go back. Folks, this is just, it's too much fun. This is March 23rd on CNN's New Day, and Fredo, along with co-host Allison Camerata and another co-host, Michaela Pereira, were talking about Obama's trip to Cuba. And Allison Camerata says, Fredo, we can't help but notice your culturally appropriate garb that you're wearing. Tell us the history of that shirt. Apparently, Fredo was wearing some communist Cuba-approved shirt or some such thing that his dad must have brought back for him on a cigar run. Anyway, here's what Fredo says.
My Guayabera? This shirt belonged to my father. It was given to him by Fidel Castro. It marked conversations going on decades ago that were the same as those today. The concern was the freedom of the people. What is the point of this communist regime if it is not to truly make everyone equal, not at the lowest level, not by demoralizing everyone, but lifting everyone up? My father, generations of politicians have been fighting this, so I wear this shirt as a reminder of that.
When I first heard this, I could barely contain myself. I mean, what did Mario the Pious teach this kid? So he gave him his official Cuban shirt. Fredo, very proud, very happy, wore it on the same day Obama was in Cuba. What is the point of this communist regime if it's not to truly make everyone equal? And not at the lowest level, not by demoralizing everybody like we do in America, but instead by lifting everyone up. Because he just described exactly what the Democrats do in this country. They try to equalize everybody by bringing those at the top down, by punishing achievement, by making the smart kids not as smart. I mean, you know, they never try to elevate people. When people elevate, they no longer need Democrats. But that Fredo thinks that communism is about the freedom of the people. Fredo, Have you ever seen what happens? Why do so many people perish in the sea trying to leave this place? You ever heard of Elian Gonzalez, Fredo? I mean, what? Does he not even watch the news? How in the world do you think, as an anchor at CNN in the important morning show area, doing battle with Today and the Fox News Channel, that you've got somebody who thinks that communism is about the freedom of the people and making everybody equal by lifting everybody up? And then he went on to say that his father had been fighting this for generations. I don't know about that. The Democrat Party never wants to elevate. That's other than themselves. I mean, the leaders. Okay, so there's that. Right now, we move forward to last night on Fredo Primetime. Fredo doing so well at CNN, they put him in prime time during hurricane recovery efforts. And he's talking with Kellyanne Conway about Hurricane Harvey. Fredo said these storms happen. They open up a discussion about the role of climate change. Is the president open to that conversation?
Chris, we're trying to help the people whose lives are literally underwater. And you want to have a conversation about climate change. I mean, I'm not going to engage in that right now because I work for a president and a vice president and a country that is very focused on helping the millions of affected Texans and, God forbid, Louisianans.
Well, you can imagine that didn't go over well with Fredo because it kind of didn't. It called into question the veracity of his question and the validity of it. And then it mocked him by suggesting that Fredo wasn't sufficiently compassionate and wasn't exhibiting enough concern for those suffering in Houston, and rather focusing on the political side of this climate change. So Fredo, well, I say that, but maybe Fredo didn't. You know, it's entirely possible Fredo didn't think any of that. I mean, it's entirely possible Fredo didn't hear a word she said because he was thinking only of what he was going to say next, thinking that he had smoked her with his question. So here's how it continued.
Imagine if we could find ways to reduce the number of these storms. Imagine if we could figure out why a 100-year storm seems to happen every other year. I mean, you have all these scientists saying climate change is part of the equation. It's a question about whether or not the administration is open. It seems the answer is no.
We'll assume. No, I didn't say that, Chris, and you don't need to put words in my mouth.
Well, you berated me for asking the question and made it sound as if I weren't caring about the situation.
No,
I think the cause of the storm matters.
I'm exposing the irony of the conversation. Here's the deal. You play amateur climatologist tonight, and I will play professional helper to those in need.
Zingo! That's Kellyanne once again shaming Fredo yet again there. But did you? I don't know. That went by so fast. One of the things that Fredo was saying, you have all these scientists. So he just blindly accepts whatever a bunch of other politicized and corrupted people say. And these hurricanes, we haven't had the first hurricane in 12 years to hit the United States. And Fredo's saying, yeah, these 100-year storms are happening every other year. Fredo, every other year is not every 12 years. They're not happening every other year. I guess in Fredo's mind, Hurricane Katrina was last summer. But again, I remind you, 1900, Cat 4, Galveston, 6 to 12,000 people dead. 15 years later, another Cat 4, and just 1 year after that, another Cat 4, all in the same area in 15 years before anybody was whining and moaning and claiming about climate change. And by the way, long before there was enough internal combustion engine running on fossil fuels for anybody to even make a case about the greenhouse effect. Let's see. Let me go back here to this. Could we find ways to reduce the number? Imagine if we, he did say that. Imagine if we could find ways to reduce the number of these storms. Imagine if we could figure out a way. 100-year storm seems to happen every other year. You know, it's a great question. Fredo, do something for me. Next time, and I'm serious, next time you have a guest who believes in climate change, I want you to take the exact opposite to prove it. I want you to ask this. I want you to pretend to be president, Fredo, and your guest is an expert. You're calling the guest in and you're demanding that he warm the climate by 2 degrees centigrade in 5 years. Tell him that is a presidential directive, and you get him to tell you how he's going to do it. Because that's what you people say is happening. We're causing it. Imagine if we could stop these storms. Do any of you actually think we are anywhere near being able? I mean, why did we let this happen if we could stop it? Well, you know what they said about Bush. I mean, this question came up. If you weren't here and a part of the audience back when Katrina hit, do not doubt me on this. The Fredo Cuomo's types and the typical guests they have seen were actually saying that George Bush wanted that hurricane to destroy New Orleans, to force Democrats to leave Louisiana and move to Texas, where they would be absorbed and not make a political difference because they'd still be so outnumbered by Republicans. There were civil rights activists who actually speculated that Bush and NASA might have had a way to steer that hurricane. I am not making this up, folks. And, of course, none of this was questioned by the drive-bys. Well, we can't question it. It's a legitimate statement by a legitimate newsmaker, Mr. Limbaugh, so we have to report it. Really? Yes. Quick time out, my friends. We will be back before you know it. Okay, we're going to be headed back to the phones here in just a second. 2 things. I just got an email from somebody who said, you know what, I know what you mean, but you better explain to your audience why you're calling him Fredo. You got people tuning in every day who may not have heard it. And it's a good point. And that's why I say it takes 6 weeks of steady listening to actually understand this program, because there's so much that happens. If you don't know enough to keep things in context, you could be confused. Fredo is our affectionate nickname for Chris Cuomo, based on the Godfather and the third son there, Fredo Corleone. That's all it is. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? I'm going to read you a headline. This is at Ole Miss University of Mississippi. Eli Manning went there. Archie Manning went there. A lot of people went there. Still a thriving place. Greek life retreat canceled after banana peel found in trees. This comes from our old buddies at Campus Reform. A Greek life retreat at Ole Miss promptly canceled this weekend after a banana peel was found hanging in a tree. A student said he threw the peel because he couldn't find a garbage can, but the incident made some students uneasy, so the school felt it was imperative to provide space immediately to students affected by the incident. Now, the interim director of fraternity and sorority life is Alexa Lee Arndt. She said, now to be clear, many members of our community were hurt and frightened and upset by what occurred there. Because of the underlying reality many students of color endure on a daily basis, the conversation manifested into a larger conversation about race relations today at Ole Miss. Now, apparently, student named Ryan Swanson admitted to discarding the banana peel in a tree after he couldn't find a garbage can. Just tossed it and it got stuck up there in a tree. It was spotted by Alpha Kappa Alpha president Michaela McNeil, who leads one of the campus's historically black sororities. She just happened to be strolling along and she looked up. She saw the banana peel in the tree and had a panic attack. I'm dead serious. Here's what she said. This is Michaela McNeil. The overall tone was heavy. I mean, we were talking about race in Mississippi and in the Greek community, so there's a lot involved. And she and her friend, we're just all sort of paranoid for a second when we saw that banana peel. After word of the banana peel spread throughout the Greek life retreat, leaders decided to end the event early. And Arndt, who is the head honcho of the whole thing, Alexa Lee Arndt, said that she felt it was imperative to provide space immediately to students affected by this incident. Some students left the retreat in tears, with Michaela McNeil, who was, remember now, she was the original spotter. She was the first to see this threatening banana peel in the tree. She's a black sorority babe. She's strolling by there, saw this, had a panic attack. She said some students left in tears, saying they didn't feel welcome and didn't feel safe because of the banana peel in the tree. Swanson apologized. This is Ryan's, the guy that threw the banana peel in the tree when he couldn't find a trash can. Ryan Swanson apologized for the incident, writing in a statement he wants to sincerely apologize for the events that took place this past weekend. Although, this is what he wrote, although unintentional, there's no excuse for the pain that was caused to members of our community. I have much to learn, and I look forward to doing such and encourage all members of our community to do the same. The Vice Chancellor for Diversity and Community Engagement, Katrina Caldwell, noted that she'll be speaking with fellow leaders to decide what makes the most sense going forward. Well, they're going to stop serving bananas, even if they do replenish things lost by humidity. But is somebody going to call the Southern Poverty Law Center and get them involved in this? We have a photo, ladies and gentlemen, of the banana peel, the actual banana peel in the tree. It wasn't even in the tree, it's on the tree trunk. We are putting it in our video switcher. If you're watching on the Ditto Cam, keep a sharp eye. We'll have a photo of the offending banana peel in the tree in mere moments. Meantime, we'll be right back. Greetings, my friends, and welcome back. We are glad to be with you. I should point out that when we go to the phones, we're going to do open line Friday on Thursday today because well, I'm taking tomorrow off. I was thinking of telling you how that came about, but I'm not going to do that. Essentially, I was forced out of here again by staff that want a long weekend. So, who do we have here tomorrow? Ken Matthews will be here tomorrow, and then we'll be back here on Tuesday. So have at it. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. Here is the photo of the banana peel that ended up in the tree. Go ahead and switch to it right now. If you're watching on the Ditto Cam, that's it. This is where the Ole Miss Greek Life Weekend was taking place. All the sororities and fraternities gather, and they were preparing for an event, Greek Life Retreat. And there was a student by the name of Ryan Swanson. He was walking through it. He was eating a banana. He finished it. He couldn't find a trash can to throw away the banana peel. So he tossed the banana peel, and it ended up there on the trunk of a tree. And then an African-American sorority chieftain came strolling by and saw it and had a panic attack and reported it to the Greek Life authorities, and they ended the event because the sight of the banana peel in the tree caused such trauma and such discomfort. After word of the banana spread throughout the retreat, leaders decided to end the event early. The leader, Arndt, explained that it was imperative to provide space immediately to students affected by the incident, meaning the trauma was such they needed an alternative space. They couldn't stay there because the sight and the trauma of the banana peel was such, so they had to come up with an alternative place for these students to go, because they left the retreat in tears, noting that African-American members of the Greek life retreat didn't feel welcome nor safe any longer attending the retreat. And that is the photo. If you're watching a DittoCam, we'll also get this photo up at rushlimbaugh.com. So if you're not watching a DittoCam, you'll still be able to see it at our website. Unbelievable. You know, I was asking Snerdley, what is it about a banana peel anyway? What's the deal? And you know what he told me? You know what he told me? He said, well, it's because apes, gorillas, monkeys eat bananas. And I said, so what? He said, well, apparently the black Greek students walking through there got it in their heads that somebody else thought that I said, you kidding me? This is the only way this thing could thought to have been racial. He assured me it's the only way. Now, I realize many of you are going to think this is bogus. Rush, you're falling for a scam. Nuts, our old buddies at Campus Reform, and that's the photo. You saw the photo. Switch it back on there, Brian. Banana peel versus me. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I totally believe the event. I believe it could happen. This is exactly the kinds of sensitivity and weirdness and oddity and political correctness that students have been conditioned to expect and be traumatized by. So there you have it. Anyway, moving on with other news before we get to your phone calls. We had the story the other day about the gross domestic product. By the way, stand by soundbites 1 and 2. We had the news that GDP, revised GDP, 3% economic growth. And job creation, real jobs, not part-time jobs, real job creation now skyrocketing. Do you know where the Washington Post put that story? They put it on page A18. On CNN yesterday, the info babe Brooke Baldwin was talking to the noted Wall Street Journal writer and economist Stephen Moore, who brought the subject up, who brought up the idea that the gross domestic product in just 7 months has outdistanced anything we saw in 8 years of Obama. This led to the CNN info babe to begin shouting and cutting away from Stephen Moore and doing everything she could to prevent him from elaborating and continuing to make the point. She just would not allow him to point out that we never even got to 2% growth under Obama for 8 years. Now already 7 months into Trump, we're up to 3%. So what's happening is that the drive-bys are keeping that news as secret as they can. They've got a built-in excuse now with Hurricane Harvey and the recovery efforts to totally ignore and abandon the story, which they are doing. Now, but the economy is growing, and it's growing at a rapid rate, and this is exactly why the time is precisely right to do tax cuts and tax reform. Now, at the end of the program yesterday, let me just play it for you, what I said. Audio soundbite number 1. This was near the end of the program. I had to get in there, get it, and get out pretty quick, but this is essentially it. Trump has begun his speech in Springfield on tax reform, just now getting into it. There are 3 lies that the media and the Democrats say after every Republican tax proposal. They are this: the Reagan or Bush tax cuts didn't work. They then say the rich are not going to be paying their fair share in this, and that it has to be revenue neutral. Those are the 3 things. You watch. After Trump finishes, those 3 lies will be part of the media reaction to whatever he says. That was at the end of the program yesterday. And now we have a montage of reaction to Trump's speech in Springfield, once again illustrating that I know who these people are, and I know what they say. I know what they're going to say before they say it. I accurately can predict them. Our montage here is of Austin Goolsbee, Brian Klass, Robert Wolf, Julia Chatterley, Anna Edgerton, Ron Insana, and Jared Bernstein. And these are all economic advisors, CNBC, CNN. These are authors. These are people who have had contact one way or the other with the Obama administration. So the three things, they'll say the Reagan or Bush tax cuts didn't work, which of course they did. In fact, there's a stunning stat about the Reagan tax cuts. They will say the rich are not going to be paying enough. The rich are getting a break. The rich are not paying their fair share. And any proposal must be revenue neutral or we cannot support it. Now, let's listen to see if we hear any of that in this montage.
Let us return to reality. Okay, the last time the country did this was when George Bush cut taxes for high-income people and big corporations.
It's just a complete lie that is going to have this trickle-down effect and massively create jobs. There's no evidence to suggest it happens.
If he's just going to keep stating that he wants to cut taxes by something like $6 trillion, somebody somewhere has got to say how they're going to pay for it.
This isn't going to be corporate tax reform. It's really a tax cut. It's not going to be revenue neutral.
Is there any consensus here on whether or not this is going to be revenue neutral? And of course, it's critical. It has to be revenue neutral.
More tax cuts to wealthy individuals, to corporations, but not to middle-class individuals.
These benefits go to households in the richest part of the income scale.
What does it mean, folks, when I can totally accurately predict the reaction and response to liberal drive-bys and economists whenever a Republican tax cut is proposed? What does it mean that I can almost predict word for word what they're going to say? What does it mean? It means they're speaking from a script. It means they are totally politicizing. It means they're not even paying attention to the specifics of what's been proposed. All it means is they want no part of a tax cut, and they're going to do everything they can to try to convince the American people that a tax cut would be the worst thing because it's going to cost the federal government money, not being revenue neutral. The rich are going to get the lion's share of the tax cut, and they're not going to trickle it down. They're not going to share it with anybody, so you're going to get worse off. The rich are going to get... It's what they've been saying since the 1980s in Ronaldus Magnus. And yet every time tax cuts like this have been tried, they have worked. And that's why these people are really panicked. Same reason they're panicked over Trump. Trump cannot be seen as successful. They can't permit it. They cannot permit. So Trump's 3% economic growth, put it on page A18 and ignore it on cable news. Don't even report it. Trump's tax cut, it's typical. It's the same as Bush. It's the same as Reagan. It's a tax cut for the rich. It blows through the federal budget deficit, and it's not revenue neutral, and it doesn't help the middle class. It's just what it ought to tell you is that the people on the left mounting this opposition are entirely dishonest and nothing but robots reading from talking points and a script right out of the Democrat left-wing playbook on how to deal with the subject of tax cuts. Let me take a break. I want to come back and get started on the phones, which is next, so don't go away. Yeah, I've got the Politico cartoon, and I've got the Charlie Hebdo cartoon. We'll get to that in due course. I got a lot of stuff left to go here. But what I haven't done is been to the phones yet, and people have been patiently waiting, and we're going to start where? In Austin. How about that? David in Austin, Texas. Welcome, sir. You're up first.
Hey, Rush. Great to finally get through to you.
I'm glad you made it in here.
Listener,
thank you.
First-time caller. I'm sorry?
I'm glad you made it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, anyway, I have been listening to you for years, and I grew up in a yellow dog Democrat household, and your inspiration has given me the courage to come out of the closet as a conservative, and I love listening to you. You've given me a lot of education and direction on how to listen to media and information. But anyway, I got in the car today, and as I always do, have you on, and you started talking about what's going on in Houston, and as you normally do with your rhetorical attitude of, hey, we should regulate all these helpers and volunteers. It's like, that's ridiculous. And it's just something that, I think people in the country don't understand Texas. Texas is different than the rest of the country. We help each other. People help people. It doesn't matter what your religion, your sexual orientation, your race. It doesn't matter. If you need help and we can help you, we're going to do it. And that's the culture of Texas. That's especially the culture of Houston. Houston will come back stronger, as it always has in difficult times. And people in Houston are opening up their hearts and their homes and their businesses to those that in need. Jim McInville, Mattress Mac. I don't know if you've seen the news. He's opened up his place to anyone that needs a place to stay. He sells mattresses and furniture, and he's opened up his place with food and didn't ask the questions. If you need it, here we are. And that's who Texas is. That's who Houston is. And that's something that, no regulator can change. Give people the opportunity to do what they know in their heart is right, and we're going to do it. So I just wanted to make that comment based on what you started out talking about earlier.
Well, you got it. I was being facetious there. You called it rhetorical, but I was being a smart aleck. Smart ass, for people that don't know what a smart aleck is. I was just jamming the liberals. But I got to say something of what he said. And I touched on this, I think, I don't know, it must have been earlier. Yeah, it had to be earlier this week. There is, folks, a distinct Texas culture. Now, I don't mean to be putting down any other state, and I'm not trying to wax eloquent here about it. I'm just telling you that there is, when we're talking about natives, and even the people who have moved, there is an identity attached with Texas. Now, there is a sense of unity there about being a Texan. I don't see it in Illinois. Nothing against Illinois. And I don't see it in New Jersey. I see mostly people want to get out. In California, you might have, on the left, a sense of, that's certainly just anybody who's been to Texas knows what I'm talking about. And I wouldn't have known this or thought it until I had been there enough times. I started going, first time I was in Texas, it doesn't matter when, but I've been there enough times and I've seen it in action. And there is something to what he's saying about this. And this is not meant to be exclusionary or in any way a slight to people that live in another state. It's just, in the United States, you might ask right now, what unites us? In the not too long ago past, that would have been easy. Love of country, patriotism, that no matter what, there is a distinct and greatness about the distinction and greatness about the United States and a great pride of being an American. And so that when we were attacked, 9/11, World War II, Pearl Harbor, there was a sense of unity. The question, what unites us today, is not easy to answer because we may not be united. I mean, I'm not talking about just the political divisions of Democrat, Republican, left, right. We have a percentage of our population, I don't know how large it is, that does not like this country, that doesn't like anything about it, and is trying to overthrow it, undermine it, transform it, change it. I'm not in unison with those people. I don't have one thing in common with those people in terms of how I see the United States of America. So when you talk about what does unite us, that would be a fascinating question. It'd be a fascinating discussion. What does unite us? Because I'm telling you, folks, there is genuine hatred for this country. But you'll only find that hatred on the left. This is why so many people are outraged at the media. The media will look at a group like this Antifa, which I think is an artificial, made-up group. I think this group is bought and paid for, just like Occupy Wall. Where is Occupy Wall Street, by the way? Where is it? How long is this Antifa group going to be around? Where was Antifa 10 years ago? What were these people 10 years ago? Now they're Antifa. What is it, anti-fascist? What brought these people to life? They weren't born this way. Where are they going to be in 5 years? Where were they during the Obama administration? I mean, some of them would show up and protest whenever it was a World Trade Organization meeting or any kind of a global meeting, but they were never protesting against Obama and his administration. They were protesting against the same things Obama didn't like about America. They're all leftists. And there isn't, I don't care what they say, there isn't any love for country. This is why, why does Kaepernick make news? The point that I made yesterday about Kaepernick, everybody has the First Amendment guarantee by the government. You can say what you want, but there are two things. You do not have the right to be heard. There is nothing that mandates you be listened to. You have to earn being listened to. The second thing is, just because you have courage, just because you supposedly have the guts to stand up or take a knee and publicly criticize your country, doesn't make you great. And it certainly doesn't shield you from the consequences of what you say. There's always consequences. So if you're going to play in the NFL and you're going to make it known that you do not like America, that you're criticizing America, and that you think America is mistreating blacks, and you think the cops are murderous, fine. You can say that, but do not expect that you get a pass on consequences. Kaepernick is suffering the consequences, as does anybody. But why does the media, why do they fall in love with people like Kaepernick? Well, it's not just that Trump's in the White House, not just that a Republican's there. The media is always going to be fascinated by any group. Why does the media refuse to see the truth about Antifa? Why will the media shield and lie about who those people are? Because they're trashing and criticizing America, and the media on balance, agrees with it. The media agrees it's a racist nation that's filled with bigots. So they'll make heroes. They'll assign courage to people to stand up and say it. And that's what's wrong with it all. So what does unite us? But in Texas, being a Texan, like the guy said, I don't know how to explain it, but it unites them there. Here's Tracy in Milwaukee. Is that right? Wisconsin? Welcome.
That is correct.
How are you?
Yeah, that's correct, Rush. Thank you so much for taking my call. It's such an honor to talk with you today, especially. And you are giving my father, Greg, the best gift he will ever get, which is me being on the radio with you after he fought with me for 20 years to listen to you.
Well, that's great. Thank you.
I have a snapshot of what I experienced today. I am calling from Pewaukee, Wisconsin. We are the hometown to J.J. Watt, and I just called after I brought up some donations to the high school, where donations were just continuously flowing along with, the money that's coming in. And I'm not calling to say, oh, look at us. I'm saying we are a snapshot. That we're not the only city that's collecting donations or money and wants to be there for Texas and wants to tell Texas we're with you, Godspeed, and Louisiana for that matter. But we are true America. We are the true America. We are what unites us is our country. And I don't know where our donations are going to go. I don't know if the person who gets the peanut butter or the blanket is going to be a Republican or a Democrat or, straight, gay, cat, dog. And I don't care, because we want to help the people that are in need. And that's what truly makes America. No matter what the media wants to tell us, we know the truth, and you speak the truth every day, so thank you.
Well, that's well stated. And, you mentioned that J.J. and his brother T.J. are from Pewaukee. Did you change the name of Pewaukee because J.J. and T.J. are from there?
No, but they probably would have if given a chance. But, we are only a city of about 13,000 people. So we really are middle America. We've seen, a great governor, in our state. So we've gone red. And, I don't think that has anything to do with, what's going on with how JJ's raising money, but he's a good man, and he's a good American, and he's leading by example.
He is. I mean, he started out with a goal of $1 million. Now his goal has gone up to over 10 million because donations just continue to pour in, and not just to his foundation or website that's been set up for this. But you're right. I mean, people all over the country are donating and contributing to this. and without specific instructions as to where it's to go, to whom it is to end up with, or any of that. You just hope, as in the case with any charitable effort, you hope that the majority of the money actually gets to the intended recipients. What did I see? That there are fake ICE agents roaming around telling people to evacuate their homes when they don't have to, and then robbing them and stealing them. There's, all kinds of entrepreneurial activity surfaces during times like this. But this is obviously America coming together and trying to and be unified over the circumstances there, which are undeniably tough. We see them on TV. Appreciate the call very much, Tracy. Here's Sean in Bell Harbor, New York. You're next. Great to have you. How you doing?
Hey, Russ. How you doing? Thanks for taking my call. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Listen, I have a point to make, but before I get to that point, while I'm on hold, all you're talking and what's going on, other things come to my mind. I'm a surfer. I've been surfing since 1965, and we wait for the hurricanes. We look forward to the hurricanes, blah, 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 blah. Anybody who has climate concerns should look at September of 1969, when we had something like 12 different systems coming up the coast, and we look forward to this for surfing, obviously. And since then, it's not been the same. So, climate goes up and down, and I don't think it's... Anyway, the point I'm calling about is you had said something earlier about, I think, the Cajun Navy and their effect coming in to help people out. I'm a fire department captain, retired. I was captain allowed the 120 in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and most of my the people I serviced were poor and black, and never did we ever hesitate and slow down and think about what we were doing when we were called to action and to help these people out.
Well, of course. Now, wait just a second out there, Sean. I was being facetious. By the way, I never said Cajun Navy. I've never uttered the term. I can only guess what it is. They call themselves, this is the Navy from Louisiana, the private boat owners coming over to... Okay, fine and dandy. Sean, I was being facetious when I was asking if the rescuers had received their federal government certification. I was being facetious when asking if there was an equal number of white, African-American, Hispanic, gay, straight, lesbian, transgender rescuers. I was being facetious when I asked if there was a proper percentage of rescued. In other words, were most of the rescued going to be white, or does somebody out there make sure that an equal number of minorities are rescued? I was being facetious because if that's the kind of standard that we're going to have applied to all of us in universities and in our workaday world and so forth, then it better damn well be applied to rescues, I said. I was trying to illustrate the folly and the stupidity and the idiocy of it. No way. I'm actually glad to hear that Sean fell for it, because it must mean that some people who also heard it probably got a little mad. Anyway, Sean, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. So Trump goes to Springfield, Missouri yesterday to pitch tax reform. You know what? There's a story in Breitbart today that says what Trump ought to do is combine the rescue efforts, the FEMA and all that rescue efforts in Houston with his infrastructure bill. I said that on, what day we came back here? Monday? It was Monday where I came up with that. And it's a brilliant idea. I saw it in Breitbart yesterday. Anyway, Trump goes, he makes his proposal. And Terry Jeffrey at Cybercast News Service last night put together some numbers that were released by the government, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the upshot of it is this: Americans spend more on taxes than food and clothing combined. And you know what? I've got the numbers here. I'll bet you most Americans don't know that. I'll bet you if most Americans would come across this story, they wouldn't know it. You know what strikes me? Whenever tax cuts comes up as an idea, I am always, still to this day, shocked that a great majority of Americans does not join the effort. Really, I expect whenever the idea of tax cuts come up that this is something now, I understand, look, I've had calls from seasoned citizens. Never forget this one call from an elderly woman in Boston. And she did not want her sons and her grandsons to have a tax cut because a tax cut meant less welfare for her. Now, I know that there are people like that out there, but I'm talking about the vast majority of people who work. And I think the reason most people don't join this call for tax cuts is they have no idea how much they're paying in taxes because they never see the money. All they see, and they may not even get a check anymore. There may not even be a paycheck with a stub. With automatic deposit, an amount of money every pay period just shows up in the checking account, and that's it. And they never take the time to look at what has been withheld. So they don't know what federal taxes they're paying. And when it comes to filing their federal taxes, most of them don't have to pay anything because they're already so overtaxed that they get a refund. So when April 15th comes around or whenever they file, they expect a refund, and they think they're screwing the government. And they love to brag to people. Yeah, you see my refund? I'm getting $1,200 back this year. I really taken it to... You're not screwing anybody. They're screwing you. If you get a tax refund, it means that way more money was withheld from you than you were required to have withheld. Now, a lot of people like getting a refund because it's the one time of year that they have a big bundle of cash, like $1,000 or $1,200 or whatever it is, to go spend on whatever they want to spend it on. But smart money management would say, plan your taxes so that you don't get a refund and so that you don't owe anything or owe a little. But there's no reason to give the government control of your money when they're not paying you any interest on it. So getting a big tax refund is not smart. It may make you feel good. Bottom line is people don't know how much they're paying in taxes. They never have to write the check. They never actually have possession of the money and have to give it away. They never see it because of withholding. But you go talk to people that pay their own taxes who have to file quarterly estimates, and you'll not find a single one of them that thinks they're undertaxed. You'll not find anybody who literally writes the check and pays their taxes knows the score. They know how overtaxed everybody is. And this is a great way now to finally illustrate it. Americans spend more on taxes than food and clothing combined. But that's even a little misleading because Americans don't spend on taxes. You don't have the option of spending money on taxes. You never see the money that goes to taxes. It is withheld. Your payroll tax, your FICA, the state income tax, the federal income tax, whatever the hell else tax, it's withheld. And you never see it. And so when the tax cut calls come around, well, I'm doing fine. I don't need a tax. You don't even know what you're paying in taxes. Now when somebody tells you know what, the amount of money taken from you in taxes is more than you're spending on food and clothing. And food and clothing are mandatory. You can't go without food. You have to spend that money. Clothing, arguably the same thing. The fastest way to get to real tax reform is to end withholding for a year and force everybody to actually write the check to the federal government 4 times a year or once, then to the state government, however often, 4 times a year or at once, and then send the check off to the payroll tax people, and then send the check off to the Medicare. That's a separate category now. And then your property tax. Make sure you pay that. Don't put that in your mortgage payment. Make sure you pay your property taxes, a separate payment. And if people had to do this, there would be a tax rebellion. One of the reasons there isn't a tax rebellion, and one of the reasons there is such a docile attitude about this, is precisely because of withholding. But this is outrageous. Americans have more money deducted from them to pay taxes than they are spending on food and clothing combined. I have the actual numbers here from the latest BLS data. I can take a break, though, because of time constraints. We will be right back. Welcome back, my friends. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Mark in Tallahassee, Florida. I'm glad you waited, sir. What's happening?
Well, I'm my wife and I are long-time listeners, first-time caller.
Thank you, sir.
I wanted to know, I was watching this tragedy unfold out there in Texas, and I kept looking for the snowflake and the Antifi navies to come in and lend a hand. Seems like they're really good at, tearing things down and pointing the finger on how bad things are, but when we're in a crisis, I don't. Did you see their boats or anything?
No, but don't jump to conclusions. Antifa will move in after the fact. If there are ever any reports that say African Americans were passed over by rescuers or cops, and those reports might be made up, then you'll hear from Antifa. But I'm not predicting it, but don't be surprised. Folks, if days, weeks from now, something like that happens, that's exactly the kind of stuff they do. We'll be right back. Fastest 3 hours in media. I can't believe 2 of them are already in the can. But we have one big, exciting broadcast hour remaining, and it's coming right up. As soon as the local affiliates tell you what's going on wherever you are. Back in here in just a moment. And welcome back. So happy to have you with you. And me with you, and you with me, here at the EIB Network and the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Anti-Leftist and Anti-Media Studies. But that doesn't mean that we have set aside advanced conservative studies. We do it all here. A one-stop shop. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882. If you want to send an email, it's lrushbo@eibnet.us. Get this. This from the Daily Caller. This is Chatsworth Osborne Jr.'s website that he has now taken a leave from since he's doing his Fox show. Nearly half of the country believes that the news media poses an equal or greater threat to the nation as white supremacists. This is a Fox News poll that was out yesterday. The poll found that 47% of registered voters think white supremacists are a greater threat, 40% think the news media is, and 9% believe that both are equal. And I'll tell you what this shows. It shows the power of the fake news media to create a crisis out of literally nothing, because there is no threat to America from white supremacists. The number of white supremacists in relation to voters wouldn't fill a bathtub. That's why this whole thing at Charlottesville was so blown out of proportion. There aren't enough neo-Nazis, there aren't enough members of the Klan, and there aren't enough white supremacists to elect anybody. And they are not growing. They are not attracting new members. They did not elect Donald Trump. They are not Donald Trump's base. They're not the Republican Party's base. There is no alt-right. It's all made up. And for a Fox poll to suggest that nearly half the country thinks that white supremacists are doing more damage than the media, This is a testament to how the media can create fake news and then expand it and balloon it and blow it up way beyond proportion. The point is that the white supremacists and the Nazis and the KKK don't have any power. They don't have a single thing that they can do. Not true of these madmen on the left. Because they are the military wing, the militarized wing of the American left, which is the Democrat Party and the media. And they are intimidating people. And they are bullying people. And these people, Antifa, they're college professors. They're professors' assistants. They've got like-minded people running the media, running various aspects of it. So it's silly. So you look at this on one hand, wow, nation split over whether media or white supremacists doing more damage. The white supremacists, there's not enough of them to do any damage, and certainly not any electoral damage. From the Hill.com, Trump's growing economy faces fall obstacles. So now here the media are back to their fear-mongering about a government shutdown and a debt ceiling crisis, going back to their playbook. This is a reaction to Trump's speech on taxes, tax reform in Springfield. President Trump on Wednesday touted the U.S. economy's 3% growth in the second quarter and boasted the best is yet to come. In his speech meant to sell his tax reform plan, Trump said the latest statistics highlight how he is fulfilling his promise to strengthen the U.S. economy. But whether the economy continues to grow may depend on how Trump and Congress navigate a series of thorny political issues in the next month that include measures to prevent a government shutdown and raise the nation's borrowing limit. Well, you know where I come down. Borrowing limit needs to not be expanded, and who cares if there's a shutdown? But that's just me. But the bottom line is Trump's growing economy. They can't deny it. The Washington Post tried to put the 3% economic growth on page A18. The Hill.com is dealing with it here, and they admit that Trump's economy is growing, but it faces obstacles. Do you think poor Obama's piddling little economic recovery ever was said to face out? No. Obama's tiddlywink little recovery was portrayed as one of the strongest, one of the greatest post-war recoveries ever. And I don't think they ever characterized Obama as boasting about it. No, because he was so smart and he was so humble. Just a wonderful guy. This next story, I saw this and it ticked me off. And it probably will too. It's from Breitbart. A spokeswoman for Speaker of the House Paul Ryan condemned the radical left-wing protest group Antifa on Thursday night, describing them as left-wing thugs. Spokeswoman for Ryan condemned Antifa. In a statement provided to the Daily Caller, Ryan's spokeswoman said, Speaker Ryan believes, as is obvious, these individuals are left-wing thugs, and those who are committing violence need to be arrested and prosecuted. Antifa is a scourge on our country. Okay, fine. Well, where was this last week in Charlottesville? The group hasn't changed between now and then. But Speaker Ryan was just one of a number of Republicans that wouldn't go anywhere near condemning Antifa. Instead, they had to condemn Trump for not properly praising Antifa and by claiming that Antifa had violence on its side, by claiming that Antifa shared in the blame. It really raked Trump over the coals, and we've now found out the media was totally changing, lying about what Trump had said. And the thing that bothers me about this, the Republicans are well versed in how the media does this. The media lies and has been lying about Republicans for as long as Paul Ryan's been old enough to remember. He knows of their lies about his own plans as Speaker. He knows how they lied about George W. Bush. He knows how they lied about Mitt Romney not paying his taxes because he was Romney's running mate. He knows all that. And yet when the media comes out and starts condemning Trump for not specifically criticizing only one side of the protest group in Charlotte, where is the doubt? Where is the experience? Where are Republicans saying, slow down here? Where are the Republicans? Wait a minute, did Trump really say that? We know the media makes it up. We know the media lies. Why the automatic slavish belief and then piling on with the media? And then you learn a week later that the media was correcting themselves in the New York Times, making it up. And a week later, you have to go out as a Republican. You know what? They're thugs. They're bad people. Why couldn't you say that at the time? Because everybody knew it. You know, Nancy Pelosi, too. Pelosi said the same thing through a spokeswoman. So Pelosi and Paul Ryan have now admitted that Trump's post-Charlottesville comments were accurate. That's what this really means. A spokeswoman for Speaker of the House Ryan condemned the radical left-wing protest group Antifa. That's what Trump did. But a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, they were all over Trump. He's insensitive, it's embarrassing, and he doesn't speak for me, and this is boorish. And now they're admitting that Trump was right. Will they apologize to Trump? Will Gary Cohn apologize to Trump? Will Rex Tillerson apologize to Trump? Will all of these people who believe the lying, stinking media, will they apologize to Trump? Now that everybody, for some reason, has seen the truth about this group. And not just this group, but every other violent left-wing group. Because, again, Trump has been proven right. Trump makes a statement on Antifa. He made 3 statements on Antifa. The drive-bys of Democrats and never-Trumpers rushed to the microphones and Twitter to condemn Trump and lie about what he said. After a certain passage of time, reality sets in. Antifa goes on to prove it's a bunch of lawless thugs at other protests, like in Berkeley. They just couldn't help themselves. I mean, Antifa shows up when there wasn't any opposition and started beating heads, lighting firecrackers and doing general mayhem. The Democrat Party's got no control over them. And why do you think Pelosi's speaking out? Pelosi's speaking out, I told you yesterday, there are a slew of Democrats that are actually worried about this. You know what's happened here? This is like the kids have believed it too much. The Democrats, through their universities, their professors, and the media, have been filling these kids with nothing but raw hatred. Republicans are going to kill you. Republicans are going to starve your children. Republicans are going to push grandma over the cliff. Well, a bunch of these young whippersnapper Democrats from kids on saw that crap and they believed it. And now they are filled with overflowing rage and hatred. And the Democrat Party did this, and the media did this, and their professors did this, because this is the kind of garbage that's been taught. This is the kind of political language that they have heard, and they have believed it. They believe Republicans want to starve their kids. They believe the Republicans want to kill people, because that's what the Democrats and the media have been saying. So now these kids have grown up. They've become these anarchists, Antifa, whatever they are. Many of them are bought and paid for, just looking for action. And they believe it. And the Democrats now are getting a little worried because the kids are going a little overboard. And the reason the Democrats are getting worried is because this kind of stuff, you know, the media loves it. The media loves Antifa. The media loves it when Antifa starts destroying things, particularly if the Klan's involved or if the white supremacists or the Nazis. The media loves it. And the media makes heroes out of them, as they did when Trump supposedly unfairly criticized them. And here comes this Gary Cohn guy, Trump's economic advisor, and calls Antifa's citizens who are simply trying to seek equality and fairness. BS! That's not at all what they are. Cohn owes Trump an apology. So does Tillerson, if you ask me. But anyway, Now these people are out of control. And the media is not helping because the media is romanticizing these people. The media is treating them as the descendants of the great raconteurs and protesters in the 60s. And whenever they do damage, whenever there's fire, whatever, the media loves it. It's great TV. It's great pictures. And they get to show people who have problems with America. That's great. Just like they get to publicize Kaepernick because he says America's got problems. The media loves that. The backlash is most Americans don't. Not only do most Americans not have a problem with America, at least it's like this, they resent the hell out of being called names and lumped in like these people are doing. They resent and they're backlashing, and it's become obvious that these people are on the left. They are Democrats. That's who their standard bearers are. And so you've got Pelosi, she's coming out, and Ryan then got on board. In a sense, you know, a good analogy, Antifa for the Democrats is like buying 4 pit bulls, protect your house, and then they end up thinking you are the enemy, and they pretend. And that's what is going on. The Democrats are losing control of these people. And by the way, George Soros, who is funding a lot of this Occupy Wall Street Antifa, he loves it. The more mayhem and chaos, the more damage to America, the better. But the problem is the American people are noticing. And they're associating all this with the Democrat Party. And it's not helpful. Because this is not a nation filled with a majority of people who see this country as these Antifa clowns do. This nation is not populated by people who hate it. But the media makes us think that there's a hell of a lot of people in this country that hate it. And there aren't. They're amplified. They're romanticized. It's causing a backlash. You hear what Dianne Feinstein did the other day? This is not being properly understood. Di-Fi went home. She's out in San Francisco. Where was she speaking? Was she at Commonwealth Club, where the average San Franciscan couldn't get in if he offered him $10,000? You know, she'll never go to the Tenderloin and make an appearance. She'll never go to Haight and make an appearance. She'll go to Commonwealth Club, you know, where average, ordinary people get. And you know what she said? She said Trump could be a good president. And the left just about had a fit. They couldn't understand what she was talking about. I'll tell you what she was talking about. She's not... Di-Fi is not as skilled as she used to be. What she actually said or meant was that he could end up being a good president if he would adopt a more Democrat or liberal agenda. If he would work with the Democrats, he could be a good president. That's what she is saying she meant. But boy, she caught hell inside the Commonwealth Club. I mean, that's San Francisco elites. If they're not at the Commonwealth Club, they're at Jack's having a grilled cheese and a brewski. And if they're not there, you know, then their wishing Ernie's was still open. And whatever. They're the super elite. They're getting more and more radical. And they couldn't believe what Di-Fi was saying. There's a crack up happening out there. You just don't know it because the media is not televising it. All right, back to the phones we go. Where are we going next? Give me a green lemon. That'd be Joe in Detroit. You're next, sir. Welcome to the EIB Network. Hi.
Dittos from the Motor City. Listen to you on WJR.
Great station. Thank you, sir.
Oh, yes. I got to make a comment about the Colin Wackernick, Wacko Nick, whatever the hell his name is, in the NFL. I was watching Fox News the other day, and they had the NAACP on saying that they were going to boycott the NFL. And Tucker came back with some facts that 70% of the NFL is black, and Colin Kaepernick signed a contract that took $39 million of it, opted out of what he had left in his contract, put his talents on the open market, and for some reason, the NAACP was going to boycott the NFL. It just shows me the desperation and the lunacy of the left.
Yeah, I remember this. We talked about this here, the NAACP boycott of the NFL. I forget. This is frustrating. This is now 2 things in a row that I don't remember. I had a brilliant comment about it, and I don't remember what it was when this all came up. Because it's senseless. I think it was just along the lines of, this is just the latest telltale sign that the NFL's days are numbered, and we don't know how many they have left. You see the story about the ESPN announcer,
yes,
48 years old, who he, not in his name, he will no longer do play-by-play, and he will no longer wax eloquent and promote such a damaging game that results in so many brain injuries, not in his name. So he's quitting. They don't want to have any part in it. And this is going to lead to others being shamed down the road. Other announcers, how dare you announce this game and hype this game as though it's something good when the people playing it are probably going to die. This is going to happen, too.
I think you're right. I think it's the beginning of the end of the NFL.
We don't know how soon, but look at this. How do you reverse this? That's the history of this kind of thing. Once the left gets going, they don't let go of it. But now you've got me. I'm frustrated trying to, because I remember the NAACP. You got to lead a boycott on the NFL, and you're right. 75% of the players are African American, and they're all wealthy. Every last one of them. Anyway, look, I appreciate the call. You've jogged my mind here. Yes, sirree! Genuine excitement, the continuation of the Rush Limbaugh program here on the EIB network. Thrill and a delight to be with you. I want a comment about Kaepernick. One more coming up in a minute. And then I just came across something, snurdly directed it to my attention. Remember, this is Affinity Magazine. We talked about it on Monday. Affinity Magazine had a junior high school, was it a student, not a teacher, junior high school student, a woman, young girl, who wrote a piece telling white families who adopt black kids, doesn't count for anything. Don't expect any big-time credit for it. You're nothing but a bunch of phony balonies. And having mixed-race kids, that ain't cool, and you don't get to count yourselves as one of us. Something like that. Well, Affinity Magazine snurdly just sent me this. Why the term feminazi should never be used. Folks, I have to tell you something. I created this term. I invented this term way back in Sacramento. I used this term starting in 1987, 88. And when my national program started in 88, of course, I continued. And the national program, feminazis heard it, and they blew up. Well, I created the word, and this is a young woman who's just come across the word, just heard it for the first time in one of her classes, a bunch of renegade guys sitting behind her, and she's livid and outraged. She doesn't know where the term came from. She probably has not even heard of me. And it's fascinating to read something like this that you are responsible for, that's ruined somebody's day, and they don't even know how it all happened. It's Kaepernick business. One more thing about this. The media position is, and of course the NAACP. So what does Kaepernick do? He takes a knee. He protests the flag and the national anthem. When people ask him about it, he doubles down. That is not a great country to me. This country's mistreated blacks. It's got a murderous bunch of police. They're shooting people, and I don't know why I should honor this country. Okay, fine, says that all. But the media position is that he should be honored. The media position is that he shouldn't suffer any consequences from this. The media position is that he should be hired for this courage. When the truth of this is, and when real life is, if you are a member of the NFL and you want to state or take action that trashes your country and trashes the flag when the league you play for seeks to honor it, well, buddy, there are going to be consequences, and you have to face them. Anybody else would. What the media is asking is that Kaepernick not only face no consequences, they want him to be rewarded for it. And that's why people are not rushing to Kaepernick's side, because they don't think there's anything worth rewarding here. Now, if a bunch of radical anti-American protesters want to honor Kaepernick, fine and dandy, but they're not going to pay him what he walked away from at the San Francisco 49ers. He had a contract that would have paid him multiple millions of dollars. He walked out on it. Now the story is the league blackballed him. That didn't happen. But the thing is, why is it that somebody, it's again a media question, why is it that somebody who has become famous for being an anti-American radical, why should that somebody be rewarded? Why should the NFL specifically hire him because of that? Which is what the NAACP is demanding, and which is what all kinds of Kaepernick supporters are demanding, when the truth of the matter is that something like that is nothing but a distraction. And the owners and the coaches have every right not to have something like that on their team. It is a business. It does not mean he's being discriminated against. It does not mean anything other than we just don't want an employee like that. Because if you're going to run your mouth like this, if you're going to kneel during the anthem, there are consequences to it. And asking to be exempt from the consequences is wanting it both ways. A responsible media would be telling this to you as I am. But the media is not, particularly sports media. They're as activist and closely linked to Kaepernick, attitudinally and politically as they could be. And so they are simpatico. So they join this effort to make the NFL look like a bunch of racist bigots. When the fact of the matter is that it is an African-American league, and look at the money that's being paid. And yet, we're being told to look at the NFL as a bunch of slave-like plantations. These evil owners, and they're sitting up there in their skyboxes while their players are killing themselves, butting heads and getting concussions. And that's what we're up against here. Once again, it falls back to the media. You know, what they choose to champion and side with. And it's always the people who speak up against this country that the media celebrates, highlights, and promotes. And that's why so many people are fed up with the media. And that's why the question, what is it that unites us, is so hard to answer now. Let me take another brief time out. We'll come back and continue after this. Jeff in Seattle, our next stop on the phones. Welcome, sir. Nice to have you here.
Hey, Rush, it's an honor.
Thank you, sir.
You were talking about Galveston, Texas hurricane a couple hours back.
Yes.
It made landfall on September 8, 1900, and less than 90 days and 90 miles separates Galveston, Texas, and that hurricane from the birth of the American oil industry, its spindletop up in Beaumont, Texas.
90 miles, eh?
90 miles in 90 days between the biggest hurricane and the birth of the oil industry. You think there was a connection, maybe?
So what is your point?
I'm actually playing with you. The hurricane came first. So if there's a God, he punished us in advance for the oil industry.
Okay. I was thinking that you were... okay. So before we even started refining fossil fuels, we had a hurricane that killed between 6,000 and 12,000 people.
Yeah, and it's only 90 miles and 90 days apart.
Right. So how can we blame fossil fuel? Well, yeah, you know where I thought you were going with this was how silly, the fossil fuel guys were to erect a refinery so close to where a hurricane hit. That's where I thought you were going to go with it. But I wasn't thinking along the same wavelength as you were. It's actually a good point if you're trying to attack the global warming side of this. The hurricane came before the oil industry, which, of course, every hurricane in the 1700s, in the 1800s. There was a big hurricane. Did you see the movie Key Largo? Edward G. Robinson was ravaged by a hurricane in that movie. Was on the movie screen. It was a hurricane. It was a bad hurricane. And that was before the oil industry. I'm being facetious about a hurricane on TV. To a lot of people, TV is the only reality they know. And if they see it there, it happened. Whether it's in a movie or not. I'm still struck by how many people associate what happens in a television show with reality. Like the characters. It's especially true of soap opera stars. If they ever run into an airport, some of them get attacked. Like little old ladies with their canes start beating them over the head for what they did 2 weeks ago on the show. Why the term feminazi should never be used. Read by some babe at affinity.com. Has no clue. She thinks that originated in a YouTube video that she's all mad about. She has no idea that I, El Rushbo, invented the term, and so she doesn't know what it's about. I remember sitting in my English class listening to the boys behind me talk about the election right after Trump was announced to be our next president. I sat biting my lip, struggling to contain an outburst as I listened to them groan about liberals. I couldn't take it anymore when one boy said, Trump was elected, they need to just get over it. As the words left his mouth, I spun around and I looked at the two boys and I said, we can't get over it because he's an a-hole. They looked at me, stunned for a moment, before one of them began to chuckle, saying, looks like we got a feminazi on our hands. Immediately rage built inside me. How is wanting gender equality anything like committing genocide? The answer is it's not. People have started calling feminists feminazis in order to invalidate the movement. No, it's not why you're called feminazis. It's not complicated. It's nothing to do with genocide. You're feminazis because you're intolerant. You just swarm and swamp everybody and demand certain treatments and behaviors. There's no leeway with any of you. Look it up. I invented it.